Hey, in this video, we're going to go over 3 different ways to redirect multiple commands to a file. So we all know the drill, right? We can do something like echo hello world, and then we can redirect that to some file of our choice. We can also choose to append to that file by doing this instead, but let's take a look here at temp OK just before we do anything else, right? It just has the contents of that echo instead of being sent to standard out. So yeah, let's in this case, append to it maybe a couple of different times here. Then we can cat it out. We can see it's being appended to with the double greater than sign. Cool. Okay. So now let's say that you have a script where you want to redirect a whole bunch of different commands to a file. So we're going to go over some examples here. So let's go over solution number 1 here, which is the yikes solution, because maybe it's not a great idea to do this one. But you can see here, we run the script here. We don't see anything printed to standard out. Instead, it's going to be appended to this temp cool file here. And actually, we're getting a spoiler alert from shell check to be like, you know what, might want to consider doing something different here. But, technically this works, right? And the idea here is, the who am I command, it's going to be redirected. ls command, redirected. Echo, redirected. And again, if we cut out this file here, and this one's named cool, we can see all the outputs there for who am I, ls, and then there's a nice one here. But of course, you probably don't need me to mention this, but the downside here is, if you have 10 different commands, that means you need to add this to 10 different commands. And if you want to test a script where, maybe you don't want to redirect them because you just want to see them printed as standard out, then you have to go here and remove that or comment these out for all the individual lines here. It's pretty tedious, right? Okay, so let's move into solution number 2, because in my opinion, there's really no use cases a whole lot that you would want to use solution number 1 here. So yeah, solution number 2 is we're going to be using command groups here. And right away, we can see it's a little bit more clean, right? We have the same 3 commands that we saw before. We don't need to individually redirect them. Instead, we can wrap them into a command group. And in this case, we're not appending, we're just writing to the file, making sure that all of standard out and standard error get redirected to this file as well. So let's run this one here. And we actually do see the extra commands here are not redirected. This was just an example to demonstrate here that, just the commands in the command group here are going to have that effect here. So we can go to temp cool, and there we can see the contents of this. So this solution is quite nice, right? Because 1, it's pretty readable, and 2, you can control which commands are going to be redirected. You can have multiple command groups, redirecting to different files depending on what you need to do. It's also worth pointing out here that these command groups are not necessarily tied into doing something like redirecting to a file. Command groups can be used for grouping up any commands to do whatever you need to do. In fact, I have videos in the past where I had a conditional pipe where we were just piping a couple of different things, but I wanted that last pipe to only happen if a condition were true. I was able to use command groups there to wrap that up in a one-liner if condition and basically only do it if needed. So yeah, command groups are pretty nice. I've done this solution in the past before, but there is another solution to go over as well, which is, maybe you have a use case where maybe you don't need this fine-grained control to have different commands being redirected to this, and maybe you just want to have the entire script be redirected to a file. So in that, you can actually use exec here, tell it to basically take, hey, you know what, everything below this line in this script, let's just redirect all standard out and standard error to this temp cool file, and there's, all our commands here, which are pretty nice to see. There's no extra indentation, you don't have to worry about command groups, etc. So let's run this script here and see how that works. And that is going to do this. You can see, this extra command here is not redirected. Why? Because it is before this line here. Now, technically, you can configure things to have this where you can turn this effect off for later on in the script. I find that to be a little bit tricky to configure because it's like you have to really play around with file descriptors and things like that. Really, I would only reach for option number 3 if I wanted to redirect an entire script to a specific file. Now, in that case, though, it's kind of funny because it's like, well, you could do something like this, and then instead of just running the script like this, well, you can just do this, right? And now you have the option of being like, okay, if I just run the script like this, it's going to print everything to standard out here, or I can just print, redirect that to a file. In this case here, we actually did want some commands not being redirected, but again, it really comes down to whatever you're working with here. But yeah, if you just wanted to run the script without having to worry about redirecting it, at runtime, let's say, then you do have an option here using exec. So yeah, that's basically the TLDR here. A couple of different examples. I've definitely used option number 2 quite a bit. Option number 3, haven't had a whole lot of use cases come up, but yeah, again, if you want to redirect the whole file, it's there. Option 1, probably not going to reach for it too often. Maybe if I had 2 commands, I don't know, but even then, I'd probably just reach for number 2. But yeah, with that said, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer all of them. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next one.